Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 17, the week of September 8th, 2023. My name's Sherlock. With me is my co-host, Mads Possessi. Mads, how we doing?
Hey guys, how's it going?
How's it going? How's your week been?
Frustrating. I've been at my job for 2 years and I love my job. And up until this point, I've had little minor annoyances with my job. You know, the typical, my manager said something stupid or had to deal with a crappy client, whatever. But this week has been the week from hell at my job because we are working on a website rebuild of our company website. And I was given assignments to reproduce content for some of the pages. And one day this week, I spent an entire day working on a page only to find out the next morning they're like, actually, you didn't need to do any of that work. We miscommunicated to you. You didn't need to do any of that. And I was so mad, but I got over it. And then today, I was given another task for a consolidation thing. And my project manager goes, oh, actually, so this doesn't need to be done either. We didn't realize it was already done. Thanks. I was so mad.
I'd be like, you better miscommunicate me some money.
And I tried to give talk about my frustrations to my mom, and she's like, well, they are still paying you, even if it was wasted time. And I go, I don't care if they're paying me, you're wasting my time. That's the most frustrating thing. I don't care that it was paid for, whatever. I still wasted a whole day on stupid shit that I didn't need to do.
Yeah.
And then my project manager was like, well, it was great writing practice. I was just like, girl, get away from me. I was like, do not say that to me. Anyways, how was your week?
It's fine. I had a very short week due to Labor Day, which, by the way, congratulations, have a very happy strike to all for whatever you may be striking at this moment. If you are striking, happy Labor Day.
Exactly.
I did not work on Labor Day, which is very nice.
I did not either.
So I had a very short 4-day week, which was very appreciated. But whenever I have been at work, I've just been like, I will not say that I will murder someone.
For legal reasons.
I'm not saying that either. So anyway, let's talk about some news real quick.
There was some big news this week.
There was some big news this week. The biggest news that I was paying attention to this week is Warner Brothers Discovery, and their continued highly enlightened sense of business decisions, decided to cancel basically all of their overall deals.
Yep.
With some very big names, including Greg Berlanti. I believe J.J. Abrams was another name.
Mm-hmm.
These were some very big people who they have suddenly decided to piss off.
Because, they aren't already losing way more money than they would have if they had just gone to the table in the first place. Why not add more to your delinquent payments? Just add to your dismal prospects of being power hungry assholes.
Right, yeah.
Because, that's a smart business decision. Instead, you could just go to the table and be like, hey, what can we do for these actors so that we can keep these potential prospects for the future on the table? They go, let's just get rid of all of our future prospects.
So the list of
ruin our company.
Yeah, the list of canceled overall deals. Greg Berlanti, who is famous for the Arrowverse. Bill Lawrence, who recently did Ted Lasso.
Mm-hmm.
Scrubs, I mean, a number of other very funny comedies. Mindy Kaling, J.J. Abrams.
Which that's a big deal because J.J. Abrams.
That's a big deal. John Wells' productions, Chuck Lorre.
Oh, jeez.
That's a listen.
Huge. That's huge.
Listen, you don't get long-running CBS shows. He may not be very talented, but he knows what he's doing, and he's a powerful figure. And he's not someone that I would personally want to piss off.
No.
So these are very big names.
It's kind of like if NBC or ABC, or no, not ABC. If NBC and CBS decided to piss off Dick Wolf, like you'd be ruining your entire, your entire industry. Like, don't piss off Dick Wolf. He runs your network.
So it's just another idiotic decision from David Zaslav, who I don't think has ever had any knowledge of how to run a company at all. He doesn't.
But again, I feel like most of these CEOs don't.
No,
like,
but
I have money. I have a chair that sits higher above everybody else. I'm allowed to make decisions, and I'm going to do it based on my emotional capacity to handle things in this moment. Like,
yeah, but Zaslav in particular seemed especially bad at it.
Mm-hmm.
Even by the already subterranean bar that's been set, is extremely bad at this. And has been from the second that he came onto Warner Brothers Discovery. Ever since that merger, he has proven himself to not know what the fuck he's doing. And only looks at the strict finances of it. Yeah, like he's a stupid man. Like I don't know any other way to say that at this point. He's just a deeply stupid man. Because I can't imagine any other company looking at this and going, yeah, this seems like a good idea. Like this collection of powerful, prolific writers and producers.
Creative minds, yeah.
Looking at this and saying, yes, I will burn all these people. Which, like, to be fair, Warner Brothers did this a few years ago during the pandemic when they said that they would release all their stuff online instead of going into the theater. So it's not exactly new territory for Warner Brothers. It is still very stupid. And to be fair, Zaslav wasn't responsible for what happened during the pandemic. What Warner Brothers did during the pandemic. But his decision in this matter is deeply stupid.
He's adding to the problem.
Yeah.
Astronomically adding to the problem. Like, it's not just a small little like addition to the pile. It's like, let's heap everything and throw it.
Yeah, I mean, like,
even bigger.
Warner Brothers already lost Christopher Nolan.
Yep.
They are now going to lose all of these other people too, because they pissed him. Yeah, because they pissed him off. But on the bright side, Greg Berlanti has donated $500,000 of his own money to the strike fund.
Good job, Greg Berlanti.
Good job. He does have. I mean, I would have to imagine, given how much, how long he's been in the TV business and how
much he has his hands
and
in
how
it.
much success he's had, he likely has more money than God. So I'm not surprised that he was able to cough up $500,000 for the strike fund. That makes sense to me. It's still a very good move, especially given how the decision to terminate the deals was almost certainly motivated by a desire to cause division within the unions, which has backfired.
It keeps backfiring.
I don't. It's like if you've ever watched The Simpsons, Sideshow Bob continuously just stepping on the rake, just turning around, stepping on a rake, turning around, stepping on a rake. That is these companies just making decisions and doing things that they just don't understand.
They're doing it with the lens of like 2008, where there wasn't really a social media presence, where the only information people got was from these news outlets that these CEOs had money invested in, so they could control the narrative. Only now there's this huge social media presence, and so the people that are striking are controlling the narrative, and these companies are thinking, oh well, we can overpower that narrative. And it's like, no you can't, we don't trust you.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of like I heard somebody either on Twitter or TikTok talking about this the other day. This isn't a piece of news that we're covering here, but like the divorce between Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner, where a few years ago the narrative of someone made a source that Sophie Turner is a bad mom would be something that would catch fire and would be taken all the way down the field. But now everyone knows the gaslighting manipulation that is. And no one believes it, or the right people don't believe it.
And also, people have heard Taylor Swift's song about Joe Jonas, and so they know he has a pattern of trying to look like the good guy, and he's really the shit guy. So
right.
like,
but it's that same thing. It's that same thing of everyone has almost has enough social media training at this point. And enough we've seen enough press releases and communication studies on a certain level to be able to say well, that's bullshit. I'm calling bullshit.
We've also seen enough documentaries relating to big things that come out in the news or whatever, and how the teams of people that are involved in the situations are always like, okay, how can we write this to make our person look good? We've seen enough of that behind the scenes stuff that we're just like, no, we don't trust that.
The other big piece of news, and this is also David Zaslav related, is that Warner Brothers is expected to lose $300 to $500 million this year due to the strike, a number that likely will increase for 2024.
Yep.
If they're only losing $300 to $500 in this back half of 2023, I'm not going to say that we can expect that number to double next year, depending on how long this strike continues for. But it could continue to be a hefty number.
Right. And I read something where California itself, Los Angeles and California itself, have already lost 5 million. That could be wrong. There was a number. I'm not 100% sure what it was, but they've already lost a significant amount of revenue because these people aren't working. These industries have been ground to a halt, and they make up most of the revenue for the state. And so that's going to see a lot of major issues for people outside of the entertainment industry. Yeah. And so it's going to be interesting. And thinking of it this way, the proposed edits that the SAG and WGA unions went to the table with was about $50 million over the course of 3 years. You're losing that in less than a year because you're being idiots.
Yeah.
You would have lost that over the span of 3 years while also making that money back. Mm-hmm. These guys are fucking idiots. But anyways. We say it every week.
The heartening thought I had the other day was that we won't be paying attention, and then one day out of the blue, everyone will be like, well, we solved the strike. Strike's over, guys. And we'll just feel like that sense of relief of like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Like, it'll just come out of nowhere on like a lazy Tuesday of like, well, strike's over, guys. And everyone just needs to like brace until that point.
Yeah. Yep. And get used to more and more reality programming, true crime, documentary type programming, the things that aren't under those contracts.
Yep. Oh, and I don't know if we may not have mentioned this last week. I can't remember if we did or not. And Mads, you can tell me. But the SAG strike is now extending to video games.
Yep.
Which is...
I can't remember if we talked about that or if we talked about the visual effects. I think we did.
I think we talked about visual effects.
Yeah. So now it's entering into video games as well.
Yeah. And look, video games is a whole other can of worms than like just strictly film or television.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's such a hyper specific list of grievances that can just be flung at the
It's definitely, I was thinking about this the other day with regards to these strikes, and I was thinking about like all my current favorite programming, and I'm like, there are shows that just aired that I'm so excited that they just aired, but then I'm like, we're probably never going to see another season of that show because this strike is going to shut everything down.
Yeah.
You know, but it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what shows survive. And maybe this might be the final thing that causes Law and Order to finally end and go off the air. Let's just let it die.
I mean, we lost.
I say with the passion of loving Olivia Benson, I just am like, let it die.
Yeah. Like, we lost a bunch of shows in 2019 due to the pandemic.
Yep.
And there was even a term for it, COVID canceling.
Yep.
And yeah, there's every indication we could see the same thing.
Yep. I mean, they've already started to trickle in, like, you know, we saw it with A League of Their Own, and they're blaming it on the strike, you know, which we as audiences know that the real reason is they didn't want to do a show like that any longer. But that's neither here nor there. That's allegedly for legal reasons. Allegedly, that's what happened.
Allegedly,
But yeah, no, it's definitely going to start trickling in more and more. We're going to be seeing, oh, well, we can't afford to even consider doing another season of that show. We just don't have the money for it because of this strike. And they're going to try and put all the blame on the people that just want fair wages.
Yeah. I mean, I lost my beloved Stumptown in Emergence due to just a few months of being shut down.
I do want to mention Danny Masterson got charged 30 years in prison.
Yes.
Because that was shocking to me, not because he was found guilty, but because he actually had a legitimate punishment. Like,
yeah.
That's the thing that shocked me.
Yes. Danny Masterson was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Not before a bunch of people sent in mail. A bunch of his former castmates sent in mail asking for a more lenient sentence.
Yeah, defending him, saying he's a great guy, and all these things, and I'm like, oof.
Yeah, it made me wonder, what does this guy have on you?
Yeah, because like I personally think not overly highly, but like decently about Ashton Kutcher. And so like to find out that he like really went to bat for Danny, I was just like, what's going on here, bro? Like what dirt does he have on you?
Yeah, and I think Topher Grace was the only one that did not send a letter.
All right, I now think more highly of Topher Grace.
Yeah. I think he was one of the main people that did not send a letter.
I will say there was someone that kind of poked fun at Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher, saying, you know, the thing we learned from this is wash your children and don't defend rapists. And I'm just like, oh my God. I love the internet for some things. I truly get joy out of the most obnoxious posts that I'm like, I should not find this funny, but I do.
Right.
like unfortunately, like when the Queen died a year ago, like there were so many great posts that were poking fun at the royal family, and I'm just like, I shouldn't be laughing at the expense of someone that just died, but
yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. If it is the Queen, you can.
Yeah, if it's someone from the royal family, you can absolutely poke fun at them, unless it's Meghan Markle, which.
Right.
Do not do that.
We won't get into that, but like I am more lenient towards Harry and Meghan than I am towards anybody else in the family.
Yeah, because they all suck.
More so Meghan than Harry, just because she married into it and she didn't ask for any of that shit.
Yeah. So let's move on into the GOAT. So the GOAT is a weekly segment we do here on this podcast where myself and Mads will pick a best television character or episode of all time and put them up against each other on Twitter and TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, I picked The X-Files Season 3, Episode 4, Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, and Mads picked Donna Noble from Doctor Who. I feel that I don't need to tell you all how that turned out.
Three guesses who won. The first two guesses don't count.
The first two guesses do not count.
Basically, you have one guess, and you're probably right.
You're probably right.
It is not X-Files.
My streak of not winning continues. So, despite it being the 30th anniversary of the X-Files, but, oh well. We persevere.
We do indeed.
My losing streak continues, but oh well. Mads, since you won last week, again, you get to go first.
Alrighty. So, this week I'm gonna go with. Speaking of Meghan Markle, I've been rewatching Suits, and honestly, her character Rachel Zane is one of the strong. I mean, there's a lot of strong female characters on Suits, but Rachel is one of the greatest ones, I feel, of the whole series. She was a favorite of mine from the word go. She's very confident and resolved in who she is and what she wants in the world. She isn't afraid to go after it, and she isn't afraid to tell the men in her life that they're being idiots, and that they're trying to take advantage of her, and she's not going to have it. You know, she really cares about Mike Ross, and yet she lets him have it whenever she finds out that he's deceiving her, which is a lot, or he's, trying to utilize her smarts to get ahead in his own career. And so Rachel is probably one of the most amazing characters from that show. She gives us a strong female presence in what is supposed to be a very male dominated story. And so, yes, my pick is Rachel Zane.
Nice. My pick for this week. It is no secret that I am no fan of Sherlock. I do not care for this show very much. But when the show slapped, it really did. Which brings me, Sherlock Season 2, or Series 2, Episode 3, the Reichenbach Fall. Which, if Sherlock has any shining jewel, any strong point to levy against itself, it is the Reichenbach Fall, which is a truly tremendous episode, which is only slightly lessened by the fact that the show, after this point, does not know what to do with it. But that is neither here nor there. And colloquially, this is known as the iconic episode where, sticking with Sherlock Holmes lore, where Sherlock dies. And as the conclusion of the Moriarty arc, played brilliantly by Andrew Scott. Twists and turns that this season finale makes, and the zigs where you think it might zag, is exceptionally well done. Whatever qualms I may have about Sherlock does not extend to this episode, which is really just like the peak of the mountaintop. And I would love nothing more than to say that no part of the show is good and I hate it. But Reichenbach Fall is just a tremendous hour of television. So that is my pick for this week. Sherlock Series 2, Episode 3, The Reichenbach Fall.
I mean, I agree with you. There are so many things wrong with Sherlock. I lived through it. We all survived.
We all survived.
But when it stuck to Sherlock lore, it was at its strongest. And you're right. After the fall, we kind of just went off the rails a bit, and it was just like, nope.
You can vote for these on Twitter and TikTok, and they'll be up for 2 days. And be sure to like and share it on both those platforms, and get a conversation going on both those pages, along with our pages on Instagram and YouTube. And email us at nonothetvpodcast@gmail.com. And be sure to visit our merch shop, bit.ly/NotAnotherTVPodcast-Shopify. Now let's get on into the main part of our show.
Sorry, I don't treat you like a goddess. Is that what you want me to do? Sorry, I don't treat you like you're perfect, like all your little loyal subjects do. Sorry, I'm not made of sugar. Am I not sweet enough for you? Is that why you always avoid me? That must be such an inconvenience to you. Well, I'm just your problem.
So we are continuing our Adventure Time rewatch here.
Indeed.
We're starting to get into some good stuff. So our batch of episodes this week were Season 3, Episode 5, entitled Too Young. Season 3, Episode 9, Fiona and Cake. And Season 3, Episode 10, What Was Missing? So let's start with Too Young, which delves more into, like, bubblegum. And specifically, Bubblegum, as she is now a 13-year-old girl for this episode. we meet a member of her family, sort of. Lemongrab.
She created him.
Yeah, she created him. Which is like an interesting wrinkle into like our understanding of the candy people.
Mm-hmm.
Of like Lemongrab, she created them.
Yeah, and he's an interesting character.
Yeah, Lemongrab, voiced by Justin Roiland, which I feel like we should mention at the top here. Who also voiced Morty on Rick and Morty, and has since become an unfavorable person within entertainment. Has done unsavory things, and has been recasted in basically every product he's been in. Rick and Morty, and also Adventure Time, Fiona and Cake, his character was recast as well there. So I feel like we should be aware and cognizant of that. While I say his voicing of the character is very fun and bombastic.
It's very, when he starts like screeching, like whining, I'm like, shut up. Immediately it hurts my ears. I'm like, nope, that's not a sound I like.
Yeah, which is like kind of the vibe of Lemongrab.
The whole point.
Yeah, which is kind of who Lemongrab is, of a deeply neurotic and dysfunctional person.
I will say the way they deal with him is hilarious. They're like, oh, that potion you made, that's spicy. We should just try to pour this on him in various forms. And it's such a 13-year-old way of handling a problem. You're like, oh, I didn't like this, so I bet you nobody else likes it either.
Right. Right. Yeah. And just,
it was cute to see them both 13.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is kind of not the introduction, but it is bringing to the forefront the idea that like Finn is very enamored with bubblegum.
Mm-hmm.
To the extent that like when you're 12 and you see like an older girl, you're like, oh my god, she's so awesome. Mm-hmm. And you have like that really intense crush on her, and it's like, oh my god.
And I love Jake in this episode because he's just like, he keeps calling up Finn to be like, how's it going? Did you tell her? Did you talk to her about it?
Yeah.
And he's like, hold on, I'm playing this video game. Hold on, I'll call you back.
I'll call you back. Yep.
He's like the stereotypical best friend. Like he's that guy that's like, I see your crush. I'm just going to continue to encourage you to act on said crush and, but stay out of it in my own personal way. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to get involved in the situation, but I will be there cheerleading you on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that scene, again, now introduces to the show, but introduces to us another character, a very prominent secondary character, BMO.
Yes.
Who is their robot / video game console.
Yes, their video game friend.
Yeah, and BMO is a really fun character.
He is. And I love Jake's interactions with him in this episode, because he's like, come on, give me the cheat code, help me out. And Nemo's like, no, you gotta play the game.
Nemo's like, I created this game. You don't know.
Yeah.
But I do love the running joke in this episode of whenever anyone does anything to Lemongrab, he goes, dungeon, 14 years, dungeon.
Yeah, he just throws a random time period out. He's just like, oh, you've done this thing that annoyed me? Dungeon for 5 years.
5 years.
You made my food the wrong way? Dungeon for 3 years.
Yeah, no, I have that GIF saved to my phone, and I use it religiously on Twitter. Whenever anyone does something weird, I go, dungeon, 14 years, dungeon, dungeon, no parole.
So by the end, everybody's in the dungeon, and he's like, I don't have anybody. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you threw them in jail.
Yeah. And that end of reversing Bubblegum's age, bringing her back to an 18-year-old, which heavily states that, like, this is a solution that they could have done at any point, but Bubblegum just really wanted to be 13 again.
Yeah. Yep. She wanted to be a kid again. She wanted to have no responsibility and just to have fun. And then she realized that no, her people needed her. So she's like, actually, okay, you have to get pieces of the candy, people. Like, build me back up.
Yeah, which A is very comforting on a, like, the candy people do legitimately love her.
Mm-hmm.
And also horrifying.
You're taking a piece of each of these people and putting them on your body.
Yeah.
That's like a serial killer, like, vibe. Like,
right, yeah. Like, she is, because, like, that kind of gets to the thing of, like, she literally created them. Like, she is their god. You know? Mm-hmm. And so, like, she is comfortable mutilating them to her own purposes.
I mean,
which should be concerning.
She doesn't use it very often.
Right.
I'm hoping she doesn't use it very often, but she's like, there's my fail safe just in case I need it.
Yeah. Which should be a concerning tidbit to all of us.
I'm surprised that Jake wasn't, like, phased by any of that. Or not Jake, Finn. That Finn wasn't phased by it. Like, I don't know, if I was a 13-year-old boy and all of a sudden this friend of mine was just like, oh, this is how we make me 18 again. Like, and he's just like, okay, sure. I'll lick the candy so that they stick together.
Right. Yeah. Let's go on to Fiona and Cake, which is, I'm kind of surprised how early in the series this is, because it is a fun riff on Adventure Time proper, with a gender bent version of the reality, where you have Finn and Jake, instead being Fiona and Cake, a 13-year-old girl, and a shape-shifting cat.
Which I found really funny, that, like, it's gender bent for the human, but for the animal, it's a species bent. like, we're not even going to keep you a dog. You're just going to be a cat now.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I went into this episode being like, oh, I'm excited. I finally get to know who Fiona and Cake are. And then I'm like, wait, I'm so confused. I'm like, what is what? Is this like alternate universe? Like, I didn't, and it took me until the Ice Queen showed up that I was just like, oh, wait, this is probably something to do with the Ice King and he's fucking things up. And, like, I'm on to you, Ice King.
Yeah.
I know your ways. I know your ways now.
Yeah. And we see the new version of Princess Bubblegum, voiced by Neil Patrick Harris.
That's who it was. I could not, for the life of me, figure it out, and I did not look it up. I should have looked it up, but that's who that was. Okay.
Yeah, and this is kind of like the perfect chaser to like Too Young, of like, I mean, yeah, I could be, like I could be into PB, but like maybe the reason that that I have so many like friends of the different genders that I'm just not into that,
Yeah.
That I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is pretty nice.
Yeah. It was a fun episode. I really enjoyed myself, and I was like, I want to know more about this alternate Finn and Jake. And I loved it because I just loved the end where Ice King was like, a bit of fan fiction about you guys. And I was like, sir, you are a mood. I understand you.
Yes.
Because how many times have we gone, I don't know if you read fan fiction, but like how many times have fans of fan fiction gone on the internet and like looked up their favorite like couple or television show and found a numerous amount of gender bent related fics to these characters.
Right.
Like every single genre / movie / TV series has some sort of fic where the main couple that you're reading about has been gender swapped. Like,
right.
Ice King was doing it before we were.
Yep.
He created the phenomena.
Yeah. And let's close out this with what was missing.
Mm-hmm.
Which the quasi-musical episode with Finn and Jake going on an adventure with PB and Marceline.
Mm-hmm.
And hints at a previous history between Marceline and Bubblegum.
It does, and it kind of like sets the tone for, oh, these two mean more to each other than we initially thought. And anyone that knows the series is like, we know where this goes. Like, we know where this heads. We know where this ends up. I found it very cute, the whole Finn having a bit of PB's hair. Because I'm like, that's such an innocent young love kind of crush thing to do. Like, oh, look, I found a lock of their hair. I'm going to keep it. Like, if you're older, it sounds creepy as hell. But if you're 13, it's like, oh, that's normal. Like, that's fine. And you find out that like Marceline didn't actually lose anything. She just wanted to go on a fun adventure with her friends. And I'm like, that's so cute.
Yeah. No, I find Marceline in this episode is really interesting to me. Partly because of like her costuming, especially during like her song. And the way the song kind of reflects that, of Marceline believing so strongly that being a kind of invulnerable will keep her safe. So like the way that she's dressed with like the long clothes and the long gloves to keep like the sunlight off her body. And then like the way that her song progresses into becoming a progressively more truthful and harrowing look at like her and Bubblegum's previous friendship, and saying the things that she explicitly does not want to say. and just becoming so frustrated that in like her own way that like she just ends up saying like these things that she does not mean to be saying. Until she sees like the way that Bubblegum is looking at her. Which is when like the spell breaks for her.
Yeah, and I love that the way to open that door was by revealing your truth. And I'm like, I think that's a good message to give in this episode, that like, you know, your friends are your safe space. You're allowed to be honest with them, and they're still going to love and accept you for that honesty.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like just the way that Bubblegum tries to do her song, which is like it's very much like a scientist's approach to making music. That's very analytical, and it's very much like by a blueprint. And it's breaking down music like the way that I understand Bubblegum would, as like being strictly a mathematical equation.
Yes. I liken it to how Spock would address a situation where he has to create a song. Like,
right. Yeah.
He's like, let me think logically about this. Let me look at the facts of the matter and what makes a song, and I'll implement those things into my song, and it'll make it a good song.
Right.
Never mind the fact that you need to have emotionality.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like the way that she's like pressing buttons on BMO in like a very methodical manner. Or telling Marceline in these very scientific terms of like how she should be playing the guitar. Which the thing I love about that is that Marceline understands it up to a certain point, which means that her and Marceline have had conversations like this before.
Yeah, it really hints at the bond that they have that we haven't seen explored yet.
Yes.
And it's a nice subtle way to kind of like introduce that idea that, you know, Bubblegum and Marceline know each other, and on a level that is more intimate than just casual acquaintances.
Right. Yeah. I would love to come on here and pretend that this is not phenomenally gay.
Oh, it was super gay.
I would love to hold my cards close to the chest, but like
the minute even if I didn't know that they're a thing later on, like the minute it was revealed that the t-shirt that was Marceline's belonged to Bubblegum, I was just like, listen, gay.
Like
gay.
Both like Marceline's surprise that Bubblegum still has it, and Bubblegum going, it means a lot to me.
Yes.
It reminds me of it reminds me of a story I heard once about Adventure Time, where this episode is written by Rebecca Sugar. And the producers had this episode like already kind of laid out, and Rebecca Sugar came on to write this episode and went, you all know this is gay, right? And the producers were just like, yeah, no, we totally, yeah, no, we get that. No, yeah,
totally.
We definitely,
yeah, that was the plan all along.
Definitely what we intended to do. But like, yeah, like every part of this is gay. Like, even just like at the beginning of like Marceline's song of like, I want to drink, what was it, like, I want to drink the pretty red from the red from your pretty face.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus.
No, they were just roommates.
They were just roommates.
Just best friends.
Just roommates.
They're just best friends. No, it was something that happened this week where this is unrelated to this show, but it relates in a way. So someone had watched the latest season of Good Omens and decided to go on Tumblr, and in Neil Gaiman's inbox decided to rip the show to shreds, saying that it was very homophobic and disrespectful to take these obviously asexual characters and make them kiss and make it super gay and all these like terrible, horrible things. And I'm like, did you really need to say that to the creator? Like, you could have just kept that in your own little chest. She's like, because they're the best of friends. And I'm just like, oh, honey. There's nothing just friends about them.
Yeah.
And Neil basically, in true Neil fashion, basically came back at her. Like, what part of that was homophobic? How was that not gay for you? Because, like, it was supposed to be gay. Just because they're asexual characters doesn't mean they don't kiss. There was nothing romantic about that kiss. It was a desperation kiss. Like, he just, like, ripped her to shreds, and I'm just like, good for you.
Yeah.
But yes, these characters are more than just best friends.
Yeah.
Also, if I ever have to see that creature again, it will be too soon. He is very terrifying. He is very oddly terrifying for something that is a very bare bones animated creature. Like,
yeah.
I was just like, the fuck is this?
Well, it is deeply horrifying if you spend even a second thinking about the Doormaster, that
yes,
he can just be anywhere he wants, and there's nothing you can do about it.
No, I'm not thinking about that. I'm not. Nope. We're not going to think about that.
No.
But yeah, I was just like, what? No, that's disturbing.
Yeah. But there is something to, like, the fact that that the doorkeeper steals things that kind of relate to unspoken desire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Finn with PB's wad of hair, or BMO with his controller, and
right.
PB with her rock shirts that Marceline gave her.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, things that, like, are real and constant in your life, but you cannot really articulate.
Mm-hmm.
Or you don't have the means to articulate, right?
Right. Like, also, like, Jake and his blanket. Like,
right.
That shows a vulnerability, and Jake is not a vulnerable character. And so it's like, oh, he has a soft inner self
right.
that really has emotionality and sentimentality.
Right. Or even just, like, BMO having, like, a literal part of them taken away, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that joystick is very much, like, a piece of BMO.
Yeah, the Doormaster yanked it from him.
Yeah.
Like... mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love BMO so much.
That poor guy.
Poor guy.
And then he gets taken apart by PB so that she can play him. That poor guy. He went through it.
He did. Yeah. So That's it for this week. That's it for Adventure Time this week. Next.
Oh, we're done?
No, we're done? No, don't go. Next week, it's going to be a big Ice King week. So we got some good Ice King episodes, or at the very least, Ice King adjacent episodes. So we have Season 3, Episode 17, entitled Thank You. And we have Episodes 19 and 20, Holly Jolly Secrets, Parts 1 and 2. Should be our 3 episodes for next week. And fans of Adventure Time will know this answers some big Ice King questions. So, that will be lots of fun.
I'm excited because I love Ice King. Yes. I think he's probably my favorite character. Like, I just enjoy him so much.
So, our next episode for this week is Lower Decks, which came back for its 4th season with episodes 1 and 2, Tuvix, and I Have No Bones, Yet I Must Flee.
The most iconic line from that first episode is, "It's Voyager. Weird things happen all the time."
Yeah. And these are some very deep cut Voyager references. Really is like a reward to Voyager fans.
Yes. Oh yeah, it's Voyager shit got freaky. That's what it was. That's the exact line.
Yeah.
I was like, I knew I wrote it down because I thought it was funny.
Yeah, and Tuvix in particular is a point of major contention within Star Trek fandom. To the extent that our friend Brittany Ray, who makes enamel pins, has a pin that says something to the effect of, "Please, for the love of God, shut up about Tuvix."
Well, apparently Star Trek will never shut up about it.
We'll never shut up about it. And yeah, this episode is a very fun kind of breakdown of Voyager and some of just like kind of like the weird hijinks that Voyager got into. You know, like as I mentioned, Tuvix, which was just horrifying, and then like all of the various hologram episodes that it had. Yeah, Voyager was a weird show.
It was.
Even by Star Trek standards, it was a weird show.
You never knew what to expect.
I always remember the episode of Magicians. The Magicians, where Quentin comes back as a child and goes, "Is this like that episode of Voyager? Or that other episode of Voyager?" And yes. I always think about that whenever I think about Voyager now. Yeah, just what a fun episode. And I do like the way that these 2 episodes shake up the status quo by having them be promoted to, what was it, Lieutenant Juniors?
Yes.
And the way that this is Mariner's worst fear come to life.
Yeah.
This is everything she dreads.
No. She's like, it's funny because she's like, "Oh darn, I'm not getting promoted," and then he goes, "Mariner," and she's like, "Fuck." She's like, "You can tell that she's just like, no, that is not how this goes.
This is not the way this plays out.
She's like, I didn't do anything. And he goes, oh, but you did. You encouraged him to do his job and get his promotion. And she's like, but that's not enough to get promoted. And she's just like, it's so funny.
Yeah. Because Mariner's whole thing is that she just kind of skates by and does increasingly outlandish things on missions.
Yeah.
And basically just does whatever she wants, partly because her mom is the captain. Just and as the second episode states, has been promoted and demoted so many times that she truly does not care at this point.
Yeah. I loved in the second episode where she's just like, you can tell she's trying so hard to get demoted. Like, she's like, I'm going to do everything I can to annoy the crap out of him, and he'll get so mad that he will be like, give me back that pin. Like, you don't earn this. You haven't earned this. And his response is actually, au contraire, I know your tactic. I am going to keep you in your position.
Yeah. And it makes the case that she has been promoted and demoted so many times because she has a deeply unconscious sense of self-destruction that she can't even combat if she wanted to.
Right, because even he points out that he's like, I get it, you're purposely doing this. And she's like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm just doing what I normally do. He goes, yeah, but you've really amped it up on this, trip. And he's like, don't think I didn't notice that, like, it seems to be a direct result of your promotion. And the fact that she's not aware of it gives you that, insight that she has that subconscious urge to self-sabotage.
Yeah. Poke holes where holes would not normally appear. Speaking of which, Moogsy. Or what was it? Moogly? Moopsy, that's it. Moopsy. A very cute character design. Deeply terrifying.
It makes me think of an axolotl. Like, it looks like an axolotl at first, and then it opens its mouth and sucks out all your innards, and you're just like, never mind.
Yeah, it's like Tribbles if it really doubled down on how abjectly horrifying it is.
For once, Mariner did not actually cause this problem.
No.
She's like, I truly did not let this thing out of its cage.
Yeah.
She's like, I will own up to everything I have done, but I will not own up to this.
Yeah, just Lower Decks is such a perfect spoof of Star Trek. Like, I love it so much.
A friend of mine recently said, like, to other people in our group that because there were some people that were like, I kind of want to get into Star Trek, but there's like so much, and they're like, start with Lower Decks. Like, just watch Lower Decks. That'll get you the information you need to know about Star Trek proper and, like, in general terms, but also it's fun and it's engaging and it's not too heavy-handed. And I would have to agree. Being that these are the first two episodes I've ever seen of this show, I'd have to agree.
Yes. So let's move on to our next show, which is What We Do in the Shadows, Season 5, Episode 9, A Weekend at Morgan Manor, and Episode 10, exit interview. So what did you think about this?
Morgan Manor made me really like the guide even more. Like, I kind of liked her, sort of, not like too intensely because we didn't know much about her. But the fact that she created this elaborate scheme because they were not nice to her, and to try and teach them to be nicer to each other and to be nicer people. And then you find out that the hoax this whole season that Naja has been dealing with is just a figment of the guide's creation. And I don't know. Kristen Shaw just like nailed it and blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed myself with this episode because there was just so many hijinks, and you can tell from early on that she has something to do with it because she's in every situation where a family member starts disappearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was definitely peak What We Do in the Shadows insanity.
Right. Yeah. There's a very fun fencing segment with Laszlo, where I guess that Matt Berry was just in a recording booth and did ADR, and they just told him to do whatever, and he just ran with it.
I love Matt Berry. He's so talented.
So good.
But also her like orchestrating Nandor finding out about Guillermo. I was like, I was curious how that was going to come out. Like, I was like, we're down to the last 2 episodes. Yeah. He has to find out.
Yeah. Which like the end of this kind of reminds me of like last season with like baby Colin Robinson becoming Colin Robinson again. Of like, how do you just reverse everything to like back to the status quo? And it's like, oh, you do it by the reversal is more gut wrenching than the actual thing.
Yeah, because the whole I was excited that Guillermo finally like got his full abilities and could become a bat and fly away and all these things, and of course Nadja's the one that finds him, like, that it was all great and wonderful, and then it gets to the point where he's supposed to be acting like a vampire and he's like, oh wait, I can't kill this person to drink their blood. And so Nandor is like, he's not vampire material. I'll just reverse everything and it'll be fine because he's part vampire hunter, so he won't die. Like,
it's fine.
And he's like, I need to create this whole theatrical, adventure in order for this to be realistic and whatever.
Right.
He's like, I'm just going to make things up. And they're like, it's funny because the other guys at the end are like looking at the wall hangings and they're like, these are really cool. He goes, oh, really? I just saw these symbols and thought they looked cool, so I put them on the wall.
Yeah. And this like really does textualize like the bond between Nandor and Guillermo.
Yeah.
And people will still insist that they do not see it, which I don't understand. At this point, I don't know how you not see it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, Nandor's an extremely selfish person. So for him to know just from observing Guillermo that like Guillermo doesn't want this, that Guillermo is better off being a human, like you have to know other elements of Guillermo to know that. Like he clearly cares about Guillermo on some level. He just doesn't know how to stop being his selfish persona. Like, he's just very extremely selfish. And he doesn't know how to break free of that to show that care to somebody else.
Right. Well, and I was thinking about this earlier today with Olivia Rodrigo's new song. Her new album dropped, and her new song Lacey, which is one of the gayest songs I think I've ever heard in my life. But I was thinking about like the insistence that like straight people don't see it as gay, and instead see it as jealousy.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how like straight people do not or cannot understand like queer complexity, the complexity of queer attraction, where you both want to be someone and be with someone.
Yeah. And there's that level of insecurity or fear about revealing that to the world, because straight people don't have to worry about that.
Right, because like particularly, and I was thinking particularly about like straight women of you can be attracted to a man, but you do not in any way want to be that man. Right? Whereas I look at like other non-binary people and go, I both am attracted to you, and also I would like to be what you are, you know? Or I would like to be the kind of like whatever thing you have managed to be.
Yeah, and I go through that as well, being non-binary / trans mask, that like I look at other male presenting people and I'm like, I want to be that. Like, that's what I want to be. And it's like hard to explain to other people that I'm like, no, that's not an attraction. It's a deeper level thing. And in my queer group, we just call it gender. We're like, we want that gender.
Right,
Can we have that gender? Can we have that gender, please?
But like, the fans of like both of like of Olivia Rodrigo and of What We Do in the Shadows were like, I don't understand jealousy and attraction in the same breath, you know? And it's like, I don't think a lot of people understand how common that is. Like how deeply both of those things are intertwined.
Yeah.
And can't be separated.
And we see that very strongly with Guillermo, because like this whole time, like he's like, oh, I want to be a vampire. But he becomes that vampire and he realizes, or maybe it was just Nandor. Like maybe it was just what Nandor is that I want to be. So, you know, we as queer people understood that, and we were like, oh, I see that. That's so beautiful. That's such a wonderful, you know, message to have. But like, everyone else is just like, what? He wanted to be a vampire this whole time, and now you're saying he doesn't? And I'm like, it's complicated.
Yeah. Well, you know what? A few years back, I was listening to a TV podcast, and they were talking about the end of She-Ra, Princesses of Power. And it was a podcast hosted by two cis straight people. They're very well-meaning, enlightened straight people, but straight people nonetheless. And they were talking. One of them was talking about how they didn't understand how Catra could see everything that Adora does for her, and also be unsure that Adora has feelings for her. And I was listening to that, and I was like, I know you're doing your best, but you don't understand like a very fundamental thing to queer culture, and particularly like queer women. Of queer women can literally make out with each other, and in the same breath question if the other person is straight.
Exactly.
Like, you don't understand like a very like defining trait of like being queer. of like the queer experience.
It comes from a lot of things in the media and such where, like, you know, clearly straight artists will sing about kissing girls, or they'll, you know, talk about how, oh, I just did that one time, it was fun, you know, whatever. And like, so there is that innate thing of, were you just experimenting? Were you just seeing what you could do? Or do you actually care about me?
Right. Like that directly brings to mind like Katy Perry's I Kissed a Girl.
Yes.
Which I don't know if you have seen recent Katy Perry photos.
No.
She looks extremely, I don't mean to stereotype, but she looks extremely gay. Extremely gay, and she's hanging out with like other lesbian artists. Like she's hanging out with like Fletcher and like other other like prolific lesbians, and it's like, okay, Katy.
Maybe you were trying to tell us something.
Okay, Katy Perry, I see you.
It's interesting. So her song is used in the musical & Juliet for a like moment between the non-binary character and the male gay character, and it's just like, this is cute, I like it. But yeah. Listen, Katy Perry.
Yeah.
Overall, though, I thought this was a satisfying ending to the season, because the season kind of went all over the place. So
yeah, I was thinking about how like this is less a like genre comedy and more like, I don't know if you've ever watched like other, it feels more akin to like early 2010s FX. Like a show more like It's Always Sunny or The League. I like anymore. I feel like a lot of The League in What We Do in the Shadows of like, hey, here's just like a lark, you know, like here's just a fun thing we can do. So like something more deeply like sitcom than like a comedy that just happens to be supernatural, you know?
I feel like it's on that cusp of being genre specific comedy and sitcom. Like it's right on the cusp there. Like they try to make it genre specific, but like really it boils down to, here's a group of characters that are the most ridiculous characters you've ever seen, and they make you laugh every single episode.
Yeah.
And they have the most ridiculous things happen to them. Which is the anatomy of a sitcom. So,
so let's move on to our next episode, which is Ahsoka Season 1, Episode 4, Fallen Jedi.
I just say I cried. In the final moments, we hear hello Snips. I didn't imagine I'd see you so soon, and I bawled because the moment I heard Snips, I was like, no. Anyways.
Yeah.
That is just me being an Anakin girly, so, you know.
Yeah. I don't want to judge this scene one way or another based on 5 seconds, but that de-aged Anakin did not look good.
No.
It looked awful.
It looked weird. It was very strange. Honestly, the first watch of that moment, those final moments, I did not notice because I was just so emotional about the fact that he finally appeared. But then like I went back and rewatched and I'm like, no, that does not work for me.
No, I had a instant moment of no. No, it was taking me back to like Rogue One with Tarkin, and I'm like, no.
It took me back to where if you go back now and watch the original series and like you get to that final like party whatever and that you see the ghosts of the 3 characters and they've overlaid Anakin with Hayden Christensen and I'm just like no. Just no.
No, yeah.
Like I know what it originally looked like because I grew up with the VHSs.
Yes.
So like I know what it originally looked like. And I'm like, nope, that didn't work. Put it back.
No.
Overall, though, I really enjoyed this episode. I feel like we're finally moved beyond what we've talked about about the previous episodes being just foundation laying. We've finally moved into the action of the story, and we get some really great saber fight moments, which I always like. So there's a lot of anticipation going on in this episode.
Yeah, and I for one was just delighted that after weeks of theorizing and saying, well, couldn't Merrick be a Star Killer? No, we just killed him. Dead.
He just vaporizes. Like it's just
dead.
Like I found that very interesting. I was just like, okay, that was not expected.
Oh, I can't express to you how happy that made me.
Mm-hmm.
To just, after hearing the absolute certainty that it has to be Star Killer. Yeah. It's got to be Merrick Star Killer. And nope, it didn't matter at all.
No, it's just a freaking entity. Like it's nothing.
It's just a
like,
dude. Just a dude.
He's not anybody. It's very satisfying to like prove the dude bros wrong. I like to do that all the time with Star Wars, because the Star Wars male fans drive me up a wall. And so like for them to be so vehemently, this is what it is, and it be nowhere near that, it's just like, haha, sucker.
Yeah. But otherwise, like, Shin has a lot of like really good physicality in her fight versus Sabine. Yeah, like she just has a lot of like really good presence in her fights.
Yeah, and I liked that it didn't try to make Sabine seem suddenly really good with a lightsaber. Because as we all know, like she's still struggling to really use the Force and find the Force and be able to allow that to enhance her skills as a fighter. And so for her to easily be overtaken by Shin, who is a trained fighter, like that was very satisfying for me as well. It's like, okay, great. It was a great fight, but it was clearly one-sided. Like Shin was clearly going to win from the start, but you still got to enjoy yourself until she overpowered her. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, like Sabine's a Mandalorian. Like,
yeah,
she's obviously,
she does have skill. She just is not super skilled with a saber. Like, yeah. And she lets her emotions run her. And so, and as we know from years and years of Star Wars lore, like your emotions cloud your judgment. I mean, that's just normal human knowledge. Like you get emotional, you're not going to be your best self. And Sabine lets her emotions get away from her. And so, you know that everything is lost for her the moment she sees Ahsoka go over. She's just like, nope, she's not going to be able to fight properly. She's not going to be able to make the best decisions. And I understood why she did what she did. She's like, here's my option to either die and never see Ezra again, or be captured by them, possibly live, and possibly see Ezra. So like I understood because she's thinking with her heart. She's not thinking with her logic.
Right.
And so
yeah.
I understood her going with them.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the episode that like really unleashes Balon. You know, it's played by Ray Stevenson, and it's just very good. Like Ray Stevenson just like crushes it. He's so good.
Honestly, that fight between him and Ahsoka was just, it was like what Star Wars is. Like that is what Star Wars is, and it was very exciting, and I enjoyed myself. And there were a couple times where I was like, oh my god, Ahsoka might win. Like Ahsoka might actually beat this guy.
Yeah.
And it's always fun when it's that evenly matched because you're not sure who's going to end up prevailing.
Right.
And then we get Hera coming in a moment too late, but still there.
Still there, yep.
I love it. I'm so glad that they finally were like, okay, we're going to give her the agency to say, fuck the council, I'm going to do what I want. And she does.
Yeah, and like Hera was going to do that anyways. Like, that's just who Hera is.
Right, and I'm glad that that the writers decided to go with that because I've been a little concerned so far that I'm like, we're not really seeing who Hera really is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are we just going to have her as like a side character to just bring up around every once in a while? But no, she's in the thick of it now, and it's great.
Yeah, yeah. And I loved seeing the Ghost in live action.
Yes.
Like, they're seeing that shit move in like actual space. It's so good.
Yeah. And more Chopper. Always more Chopper. I love where he like makes the sound like uh-oh. And I love that she like uses this moment to teach her son that like the rules are important, but sometimes men are stupid, so you just ignore the rules.
Just do what you want.
She goes, when you're in my position, you can do whatever you want. It was also great to see, is it Carson? Is that his name?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like that actor. He's one of my favorite people. He's so wonderful, and he's such a varied actor because, like, I first became aware of him because of Kim's Convenience, where he plays this ridiculous, stereotypical immigrant father, and then now he's in Star Wars, and you're just like, so different, but it's great.
Yeah. So let's move on to our next episode, which is Dark Winds, Season 2, Episode 6. This will not go well for me. I just want to say that.
Sorry. My phone just went off. Sorry.
Entitled, this is definitely not going to go well for me. Hazu Nasha.
Yeah, well, let's just admit that we're white people and we're going to butcher
Listen,
it.
I am the whitest person that has ever white-personed. So I apologize to all indigenous people because I probably killed that.
I agree. Like, I'm the same way. I literally looked at those string of letters and I was just like, not even going to attempt to try and pronounce that.
Yeah. So this is the finale to the second season. And
this show needs more episodes.
Yeah, I was talking to our friend Sarah, who reviews this at Telltale TV. And we were talking about how it really needed more padding. And I was saying that, like, even an episode or two, I think, would have really helped this.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it feels like they got to, like, this episode and realized, like, this was their last episode and just, like, panicked and threw something together. And I was like, okay, well, and kind of, like, stepped up other parts of the show, just was like, well, whatever.
Yeah, and it's like they were like creating these first 5 episodes thinking, oh, this is only the 4th episode and we still have 2 more episodes. And then they got to the 6th episode and they're like, oh, actually, no, we don't. We only have 1. And it just was, it's frustrating when that happens because you're like, there's so many side stories that you're like, I want a better resolution for them. And yet they're the first to get thrown under the bus because they're like, it's not the main story, it's not most important. Like the blonde man's mother, like why did we spend time on her? Because she does not matter. Like you know what I mean? Like,
well, like
it's just like that was
even he didn't matter by the end of it.
Some of that time, yeah.
Like Jerry Ryan gets extremely short shifted this season. I can't imagine having Jerry Ryan and neglecting her the way the show did.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost criminal.
Yeah.
But like, you know, like there's that, and like Byrne is now going off to Border Patrol, and I still don't know why Byrne wants to go to Border Control. Like I understand by the end of this, I understand that she doesn't want to be part of a traditional justice system. Yeah. It doesn't work for people like her. I don't understand Border Patrol though.
Yeah, I get the idea that like she's like, I need to expand my horizons. I need to go outside of the place where I was raised. I need to like explore the world a little more. But you're right, like of all the types of positions she could have chosen, that one just doesn't make sense.
Like she's still confining herself to like the constrictions of white colonialism, like American colonialism. Mm-hmm. This is just it's the same thing that she's already dealing with, you know? It's just being directed at different people.
Yeah. It's also going to be sad if that, like, if we do get another season and, like, they've decided that's the end of her character because she has such a dynamic with Joe that, like, it's going to be severely missed.
Yeah, and Jessica Batten is a really good performer on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she has excellent presence, and
I did like her goodbye moment with Joe, and he basically calls her his daughter, and it's just like, oh, that's so sweet. Like, you know, it's something that we've known, but like, it's nice to hear him say it.
Yeah, and I don't really care about her. Will they? Won't they? With she?
Yeah, I don't
whatever.
Care. It's whatever.
I just don't care about that character.
So you don't care that he seems to be back?
Yeah, like... I super don't care. I would have much preferred the roles be reversed, that we lose Chi.
Like he go to listen, send him to Border Patrol.
Yeah, like, I would much rather lose Chi and keep Byrne, like a million times over.
Oh, absolutely. I prefer Byrne to Chi any day.
Yeah. But like, yeah, and like the larger like villain stuff doesn't feel like it got resolved in a interesting way. Like,
I mean, they killed him at the very beginning of the episode.
Yeah, like just
and without us getting like full understanding of what his motivations were, why he was doing all this, like we don't get those answers, and that's very, very frustrating.
Yeah, and like to me, this feels worse as someone who has spent the last week rewatching Justified, a show that is so well paced and is so efficient in its storytelling, and with like its villains, that just like to do this in what is essentially half the time is deeply like I don't understand why it was only 6 episodes. Like, yeah, I don't understand putting that on yourself as a show.
Right. It's not like it's a sitcom that gets 6 episodes, cuz that whatever. It is what it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a very deeply developed drama, and you're like, you can't establish a solid basis for this drama in less than 6 episodes and then wrap everything up in a full 6 episodes.
Yeah. Like I don't know why you didn't give yourself 10 episodes. Like,
or even 8. Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, if they couldn't have gotten 10 approved and 8 was like the max they would do, like take 8. Like, I don't understand the 6th episode.
Yeah, like you told me last week that this was the last episode, and I almost didn't believe you until I checked myself. I'm like, there's just no way.
There's no way. Yeah. I felt that way as well. When I realized it was the last, I was like, that's not enough time. We have way too many dangling pieces. We need to have more time.
Yeah. But whatever. Let's move on to Reservation Dogs, season 3, episode 7, entitled Wahoo. And the way I feel about this is, to quote Alan Sepinwall in his lead, was this episode of Reservation Dogs started out ridiculous, then fun, then heartbreaking. So it is an episode of Reservation Dogs.
Yeah. Yep. I like that we got to focus a bit on Bear's mom, because like I feel like we never really get to see her and so to speak to her.
Yeah.
And so like to see her go through those transitions of, oh, she found out she got a new job, like she's got offered a promotion that could change her whole world, and she's not sure she should take it because it means moving her whole life. And then we cut into, she thinks she's freaking crazy because she's seeing the ghost of her friend. And, you know, so it's like that part's ridiculous. Oh my gosh, those scenes at the beginning with her friend, and she's like talking about her boobs and talking about the water pressure and just showing up in the bed. And so she ends up sleeping with Bear because she's like, I'm not sleeping with a ghost.
Yeah. This episode does follow like the really like the running theme of a lot of the episodes in the series, but particularly this season of the lasting and devastating effects of loss and grief in your life.
Yeah.
Which was like something I always liked when I watched Steven Universe was the idea that there is no there's no expiration date to grief. There's no expiration date on emotional trauma of some kind. These things stick with you, and if you don't look at it and take care of it, it festers and eats away at you.
Yeah.
And this being literalized as her friend's ghost, as Alora's mom. Who we don't get to spend a lot of time with in the show as like as an idea of like, yeah, Laura lost her mom at a very young age. And has never known her mom really. And
yeah,
I did really like that moment, like halfway or towards the end of the episode of like Alora's mom saying like, you could have come here at any time and talked to my daughter and you chose not to.
Yep.
What is wrong with you?
Yeah, it's you know, up to this point, Cookie's been very whimsical and funny, and her like typical self that that Bear's mom remembers her as, and then all of a sudden she like turns on her and she's just like, "You're my best friend. Why weren't you talking to my daughter about me?" Like those. It's kind of like that duality of grief where you remember the good and wonderful things about the person that you're missing, but then you also have those moments where you're like, they'd probably be chastising me for this action that I haven't done or I have done. And it was very beautifully done.
Yes. Yeah. But it does force you to like be in her shoes of like, if I lost my friend like a long time ago and their daughter or their son was around me, would I want that constant reminder? Would I want to engage with that? And some people would say yes, some people would say no.
I also really liked the parallel with the end of the episode to like kind of what we've seen the younger group go through with their friend dying and finally letting it go. I thought that was a very beautiful way to close that storyline.
Yeah.
It felt very conclusion, like very much like a conclusion to what they have to say about grief and moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very poignant episode.
Yes. Also, that therapist needs a therapist.
The therapist definitely needs a therapist.
Because he's talking about Diamond and Lou Phillips and crying. I was like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
On that note, let's move on to our next episode, which is Harley Quinn, Season 4, Episode 9, titled Potato-Based Cloning Incident. And I've thought a lot about this episode, and I think I've come down to that I did not care for it very much.
I just found it to be super ridiculous.
It is super ridiculous, but also it's trying to like put actual answers on the season. Like it's trying to explain away certain things that don't track. Of like what happened to Nightwing. Oh, Harley killed him. How did she kill? Like, why has there been another Harley? Oh, it's an actual potato clone. That's the good part. Well, it doesn't seem like it's a good. Like, it's a lot of things that just don't correlate.
It definitely seems like a situation of, oh, we're down to the wire. We haven't answered these questions. Let's just use ChatGPT to come up with an answer and throw it in.
Right.
A clone made from from a strand of hair and a potato. Oh, sure, that sounds fantastic. That sounds very doable.
Yeah.
This clone is extremely sweet, but also viciously murderous. Sure, okay.
Yeah. Well, like the end of the episode with like Joker shooting Barbara, and it's like, this isn't. I don't like this turn from socialist Joker back to villain Joker, because it feels like the writer's trying to like etch a sketch Joker from like the last couple seasons, and it doesn't work because this isn't the character. Like, you can't just violently pivot like that, Like, you were able to get away with it from classic Joker to socialist Joker because, like, you laid that out.
You built it up. Yeah, exactly. You built it up.
You haven't built this up. You haven't done the work to go from Mayor Joker back to, Joker classic.
He literally woke up one day, told his family, "We're being villains again," and that was it.
Yeah.
Like, you can't That doesn't work.
That doesn't work. And it certainly doesn't work, in doing like this very iconic storyline of Joker shooting Batgirl,
Mm-hmm.
which has a very polarizing effect on an audience. Like a lot of people don't like it. Some people do, and like strictly for like the disability representation. But I'm sure they'd also say they don't like the steps it takes to get there.
Yeah. I was not a fan of it, mostly because I was just like, this came out of nowhere. And I'm like, I'm not sure what this is going to do for the final episode. It didn't make a lot of sense. And so, yeah, I'm in the camp of the steps don't make sense to get there.
Yeah. And then the Poison Ivy side is fine. It's a weird Succession riff. As someone who has never seen a moment of Succession.
Oh, I've seen every moment of Succession, and I was just like, this is okay. It's not really landing, but okay, whatever. When they make the legitimate Succession reference, I'm like, I understood that reference, but at the same time, I was like, I'm not sure I like this. I don't know if I have a feeling about it. Like, I was like, do I not like it, or am I just indifferent? Like, I couldn't figure it out because I was just like, whatever.
Right.
It was a way for them to end whatever Lex Luthor was doing to the ozone layer, which I get to a point, but at the same time, I was like, again, this wasn't built up. The whole plot wasn't elaborated well enough.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I had a problem with the coloring throughout this episode.
Me too.
Where it made sense when they were outside and the actual like color was affected. Like the actual like color spectrum was affected. But when they were inside and they were lighted by these fucking fluorescent light bulbs, why does the color still look like that?
Right.
Because that's not how light works.
Right. And so it was like very frustrating. I mean, it made it easier for us to see when she was going back in time or seeing a memory or whatever. But at the same time, it was like, that's annoying.
Yeah, it shouldn't look like that when we're indoors. Doesn't make sense.
Don't look too closely, Drew.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, it was an okay episode.
Yeah.
It was fine. It was whatever.
Yeah.
I watched it.
So let's move to the last episode of the week, which is My Adventures with Superman, Season 1, Episode 10, Hearts of the Fathers, which is the finale for this first season. I do think it's interesting, kind of doing a lot of like Kryptonian stuff in a very like anime way. Like both in terms of like plot and like action and just a kind of like description of like what's actually going on throughout the episode. And like actually like detailing what is happening with like the kryptonite and the robots and the other portal people.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And
yeah, because if they had just showed up, we would have just been like, what?
Yeah. But it's all done in like this really like kind of classic anime way, you know? Of kind of like almost like separating itself from like classic Superman lore.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, Clark makes the comment. He's like, "Oh, this is what happened on what was it? Doomsday? No, that's not what it
Or
was.
something like that. Yeah.
Whatever they call it."
But also the end of it, the end of the episode is like weirdly Avengers.
Yeah.
Like it's an almost like shot for shot remake of like the end of Avengers with Thanos.
Yeah. I will say I'm glad that we were correct in thinking that Lois's father was going to be the general.
Yeah, which is
it's very in line.
Yeah, it's very low hanging fruit.
Yeah. But I love that realization for Clark. Like, he's like, "Oh, we're having your dad over for dinner, la la la," and then he opens the door and he's like, "Oh no."
Yeah. Yeah, and turns out he's just a dick overall. Like, he's just kind of an asshole.
I love when Lois like realizes he's a dick, and I'm just like, you didn't know this before? Like, he's your dad.
Yeah.
He doesn't hide it.
Yeah.
It was middle ground episode. It was okay.
Yeah, it's fun.
It wasn't the worst way they could have ended the season.
Yeah. But yeah, opens the door for, again, I'm assuming Zod to come into the show next season.
Mm-hmm. Which would be very interesting.
Yeah, I think the conventional answer would be Zod. And I would be interested to see like what this show's version of Zod actually looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah. So that's it for this week. Next week, we will be swinging back around to the Lost Flowers of Alice Hart. And we will be starting a rewatch of Dimension 20, Fantasy High. A lot of people seem to like the Dimension 20 standalone episode I did with Robert Jeffrey. So we are going to continue this here on the podcast.
Yep.
It will be a lot of fun.
I'm excited.
Yes.
Something to look forward to considering our television is dwindling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It'll be a good exercise in trying to examine TV that isn't strictly TV.
Mm-hmm.
So until next week, where can we find you online?
I am on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, all those places at Dorothy NYC 89. And yeah, that's where you find me.
Nice. And you can find me on Twitter at Deidre Koenig, and I'm on TikTok at Drew_Koenig, and I'm on Blue Sky at Drew Koenig. And you can follow the podcast at Not Another TV Pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Blue Sky. And you can email us at notanothertvpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, comments, questions, listener submissions, GOAT recommendations you have. You can find previous episodes on the podcast on Apple and YouTube, along with any other podcatching device you have. Be sure to leave a review and subscribe on those platforms. Until next week, Always remember, do not go in the ocean. It is none of your business.
Indeed.